Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 203, Lysis 204 C2E. Socrates has just declared that he is divinely inspired with the ability to know who is lusting and who is being lusted after. This is a fairly effective tactic to put pressure on Hippothales, but the fact is that Socrates could have known easily, without God's assistance, and we don't even know which God, without the divine assistance, that Hippothales is in fact obsessed with someone in the wrestling school. Hippothales is trying all he can to persuade Socrates to come into the wrestling school, and his main argument, his main incentive, is that there are young, handsome youths inside worth looking at. Socrates doesn't actually know who the one lusted after is, unless, and this would be exotu dramatos, outside of the drama, unless Socrates already knows what the situation is, even before he came to the wrestling school today. As we'll soon see, Hippothales hasn't exactly been keeping it a secret, and Socrates could have heard from anybody who has suffered from Hippothales' songs of praise. This would add even more significance to Socrates' choice to walk directly from Academy to Lyceum, incidentally meeting these youths outside of the wrestling school, and knowing that he would then be invited into the wrestling school to have a chat with the one being lusted after by Hippothales. This is all speculation. We don't really need it, but it is an interesting option we should keep in mind. And we should also remember that this is a fictional conversation. It is not real, and Socrates is being made into a particular model, and if he's being made into a model with extreme foresight, then so be it. Socrates has extreme foresight in some other dialogues, including Politeia, where he goes down to Piraeus with Glauco, knowing that Adimantus and Polemarchus are there, and that there are additional people in Polemarchus's house, and he knows he will be invited to go there. Polemarchus, incidentally, also uses the incentive of handsome young men with whom Socrates can have a chat. Socrates achieves his own aims, discussing things with a variety of people, by appearing to give in to what they want. The same thing holds true in this dialogue. He's being persuaded to go to the wrestling school, as if he is attracted, like Hippothales, to handsome youths. All the while, Socrates himself, we may already assume, is more interested in talking with people whom it is worth talking to, because they still have a chance of changing their mind. Young people notoriously have an ability to change their mind, while older people stop having a mind to change. Socrates' psychological pressure works because this is what happens to Hippothales. Kai hos akoutsas polou etimalon erythriasen. And when he heard this, he blushed even more. Hippothales not only blushes, but he evidently stops talking, because now his friend has to take over. Houn Ctesippus, asteionge edhos hoti eruthrias o Hippothales, kai oknese pen Socrate tunoma. So Ctesippus, how urbane, he said, that you are blushing, Hippothales, and you are hesitating to tell Socrates the name. And hutos kais mikron chronon sundia tripse soi, parathesetai huposu akuon thama legontos. But if he spends even a little while with you, he will be tortured by you, hearing you saying the name, that is, frequently. Ctesippus here uses the verb sun diatribo, to spend time with, and in this case spend time with Hippothales, and this is yet another indication that diatribe doesn't have its educational connotation in this dialogue, at least not yet. Hemoongun, O Socrates, eke kofo keta ota kai empepleke lucidos. Our ears, at any rate, Socrates, he has quite deafened and filled up with Lysis. Ctesippus may be ribbing his friend Hippothales, but there may be an element of serious concern here that they, all the friends, the older group of youth, are sick of hearing Hippothales go on and on and on about Lysis. If what Hippothales said earlier is true, they all have some lust interest in the wrestling school, but apparently they don't go on about their lusted ones. It's only Hippothales who is so vocal. Anmende kai hypopie, iu Maria eministin kai ex hypnu egromenois lucidos oestai tunoma acuen. And if he is even a little drunk, it is easy for us to wake up out of sleep and think that we hear the name of Lysis. Kai hamen catalogaden diegetai denaonta, upanuti dena estin, allepidanta poemata hemon epicherese catantlen kai sungramata, kai ho estin tuton denoteron, hoti kai ade esta paedica phone thaumasia, hen hemaste acuonta sanegestai, nunde rotomenos suppossu eruthria. And the things he details in prose, although terrible, are not absolutely terrible, not like when he tries to drown us with productions, poemata, poems, and compositions, and even more terrible than these, that he also sings to his loved one with an amazing voice, which we have to put up with when we hear it. And now, being asked by you, he blushes. Ctesippus may be exaggerating, but he also may not be. In dialogue after dialogue, we have seen that characters are degmata of paradigmata of aspects of a concept, and as such, each character is clear-cut and extreme, with additional features of a historical character, in part simply to make the characters palatable in a dialogue. So despite the characteristics of a historical figure, the degma is still essentially an extreme, clear-cut representation of an aspect of a concept. Therefore, if Hippothales represents lust as an aspect of a wider concept, which for now I will assume to be philia, then we shouldn't be surprised if Hippothales is made very, very extreme when it comes to his behavior. If any of you are objecting that lust is not an aspect of friendship, you would be correct. Lust is assumed by many people to be an aspect of love, but it may not be. And in a Platonic dialogue, some of the aspects are simply the way that the central concept is misconstrued in one way or another. If philia is misconstrued as sexual lust, then it needs to be represented in a dialogue. Plato likes to represent all sides of a concept, both the reality and the appearance. Alternatively, lust may be seen as one element of philia, of love. So we'll have to see where the dialogue takes us. At the moment, I'm just throwing out some possibilities and observing that Hippothales is actually an extreme character. We should notice that Ctesippus refers to Hippothales' loved one as paidika, which is literally things pertaining to a child. But paidika would be the term more usually used by the Erastes towards his eromenos than the word eromenos, the one lusted after. The paidika would be younger than the Erastes, the luster. Lysis must be younger than Hippothales, and therefore he must be young. Here, however, is how Socrates concludes that he is young. Estinde endego ho Lysis neostis hos oike, tekmairomaite hoti accusas tunama ukegnon. Lysis, I said, is some young person, so it seems I'm basing this on the fact that I didn't recognize the name when I heard it. Here we have another case of Socrates editing as he sees fit and giving the wrong reason. It's a small point in itself, but it is an indication of the habit Socrates has in this dialogue of providing specious reasons for what he and the others do and think.